The Beverly Hilton never really sleeps. There's always a hum in the air, the mechanical pulse of elevators, the steady buzz of air conditioning, and the faint echo of heels clacking across polished marble floors. Yet some nights, in the quieter wings, when the parties fade and the music dies, a strange silence wraps around the corridors like static before a storm. Suite 434, on the 4th floor overlooking the shimmering pool, is one such place. It began with something subtle, too subtle to alarm anyone. Guests would complain that the light in the bathroom flickered once or twice just after midnight. The front desk noted it and sent maintenance. Nothing was ever found. A burnt bulb, perhaps, or faulty wiring. But when it happens repeatedly, always in the same room, always at the same hour, it stops feeling like coincidence. Angela, a night housekeeper who'd been working at the Hilton for 15 years, was the first to mention the smell. A faint sweetness in the air, like jasmine or a floral perfume. She said it lingered near the bathroom door even after she'd cleaned with industrial disinfectant. She told her supervisor, half joking, "It's like someone sprayed perfume and never left." They both laughed it off. But when the scent returned again 2 days later and the room was still empty, she stopped laughing. The hotel doesn't talk much about that suite. Not officially. Staff call it the room in hushed tones, no number mentioned. Because everyone knows what happened there. 10 years ago, Whitney Houston, the woman whose voice once filled arenas and broke hearts, was found in that very bathtub. The night before the Grammy Awards. Guests who book the suite rarely realize the connection. It's just another upscale room on the booking app, newly refurbished with cream carpets and soft beige walls. But those who do know and stay anyway usually leave a note not to complain, but to describe something odd. The sound of running water with the tap turned off. A voice humming faintly through the vent. The impression of movement behind the frosted glass door when no one's inside. In February, a corporate guest named Michael Dunn checked into room 434. He wasn't a fan, didn't even know about the history. He'd flown from Chicago for a conference and requested a quiet corner suite. At first, everything was ordinary. The faint smell of chlorine from the pool below, the distant hum of Wilshire traffic. But that first night, around 2 a.m., he woke to the sound of water, soft, rhythmic, as if someone were pouring a bath. He turned on the bedside lamp. The sound stopped instantly. He waited, listening. The room was still. The air conditioning clicked once. He exhaled, turned off the light, and lay back down. Then came a soft metallic clink like a bottle cap dropping on porcelain. He sat up again, this time with the unease that only comes when silence feels intentional. The next morning, Michael mentioned it casually to the front desk. The clerk smiled politely. "Old pipes," she said, writing it down. "They echo at night. Happens all the time." But she didn't look convinced. Angela was assigned to clean the room later that day. The sheets were untouched, the bathroom spotless, but when she turned to leave, she noticed something strange. The vanity mirror had fogged slightly, as though someone had just stepped out of a hot shower. In the corner, on the condensation, a faint streak curved downward, almost like the trail of a fingertip. She wiped it clean, more out of reflex than curiosity. But before she left, she paused at the door, looked back once, and whispered under her breath, "Rest easy, Miss Whitney." That night, the scent returned. Stronger this time, floral, powdery, distinctly vintage. The kind of perfume no one really wears anymore. And as the hotel lights dimmed and the city outside settled into a heavy coastal fog, Suite 434 stood quiet but not empty. By the time Michael returned to his suite that evening, the sunset had folded over Beverly Hills like gold poured through smoke. The window curtains in room 434 glowed faintly orange, and for a moment, he thought the city looked almost unreal, too quiet, too staged, as if the day had been paused for him alone. He placed his laptop on the desk, removed his tie, and turned on the bathroom light. It flickered twice before staying on. The air inside was still damp, though he hadn't used the shower all day. He noticed the faint perfume again, not overwhelming, but definite, the kind of scent that travels only when someone has just passed through. His first thought was that housekeeping had changed their cleaning products. He checked the bottles on the sink. Clear plastic, scent-free, hotel standard. Still, the fragrance clung to the air, soft and feminine, with that vintage sweetness he couldn't quite place. He opened his laptop, tried to write an email, and stopped halfway through the first sentence. From somewhere deep in the walls came a hollow echo, the slow gurgle of pipes filling, like water seeking its level. It lasted no more than a few seconds, then fell silent again. He stared at the closed bathroom door, watching a thin seam of light glow under it, as though someone were standing inside, moving slowly. He called out once, quietly, almost embarrassed by his own voice. No answer. The hotel was old, he reminded himself. Built in the mid-50s, refurbished a dozen times since. Pipes expand, air vents breathe, electricity hums differently in Los Angeles humidity. Logic, he told himself, solves everything if you give it a name. But logic has a way of sounding smaller in a quiet room. He tried sleeping with the TV on. It helped for a while until around 3 a.m., when the screen went black on its own. The lamp beside the bed dimmed at the same time, its light sinking as though something had drawn energy out of the room. He sat up, disoriented, and saw the bathroom door again, now slightly open. A line of darkness cut through the pale tiles, leading into the mirror's faint reflection. He got up, crossed the carpet, and pushed the door fully open. Nothing. No sound. No scent now, just cold air. He left the light on for the rest of the night. The next morning, when housekeeping entered, they found the room unusually cold. The thermostat had been set to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, yet the air felt sharper, almost damp. Angela noted it in her report. Temperature lower than setting check sensor. She also wrote, almost as an afterthought, faint smell again. It wasn't procedure to mention smells, but by now several staff had noticed the same one. Later that week, a different guest checked in, a woman traveling alone, a real estate broker from San Diego named Karen. She requested a top-floor room but got upgraded instead. 434 was available. She stayed only 2 nights, but left a note with reception on checkout, lovely suite, though the bathroom light kept flickering. And someone was humming through the vent? I assumed the next room, but maybe the walls are thinner than I thought. The rooms on either side of 434 were vacant. Security reviewed the maintenance logs, found nothing irregular. Still, the supervisor, out of curiosity, ran the hallway motion sensor footage. At 2:16 a.m., the indicator outside 434 blinked on. The door opened halfway, just enough for the light to spill into the hall, then closed again. No one visible. No keycard used. It looked, as the supervisor later put it, like the door took a breath. One evening, Angela stayed after her shift, pretending to finish paperwork, but really she wanted to know. She brought a small recorder, something she'd used years ago to transcribe her night classes, and left it on the vanity in 434 while she folded towels. The room was quiet except for the faint whir of the HVAC. She whispered softly, "Good evening, Miss Whitney. I hope you're resting well." The lights stayed steady. Nothing moved. She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, the faucet released a single drop of water. It landed in the tub with a sharp metallic plink, echoing longer than it should have. Angela froze, eyes on the sink. The tap was dry, no leak visible. She waited a full minute, then another drop fell. Just one. She turned off the recorder, hands trembling, and left the room without looking back. When she played it later in the break room, the sound was clear, the drop, the echo, but under it, faint and low, a soft melodic hum. Barely audible, yet unmistakable. It wasn't a random tone. It followed a pattern, 2 descending notes, then one rising like the first line of a song. Someone said it sounded like "I Will Always Love You." The recording was never officially discussed, but copies circulated among staff, shared like a secret they weren't supposed to know. Some said it was interference from the air vents, others that it was faked. But Angela never mentioned it again. She simply refused to clean 434 after that, saying she'd done her part. Guests kept coming. Some left quickly. Others stayed longer, unfazed. Yet the pattern remained. The flickering light, the perfume, the slow dripping sound from the tub. And somewhere behind the quiet elegance of the Beverly Hilton, behind its polished glass and floral arrangements, a single suite began to feel less like a room and more like a stage that refused to close its curtain. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The management didn't want to draw attention. The Beverly Hilton thrived on privacy, on the silent understanding that its walls had seen everything and said nothing. But a pattern like this couldn't stay unspoken forever. By spring, quiet complaints had multiplied. The hum in the vent, the chill that settled in the marble bathroom even with the air conditioning off. So, discreetly, they brought in a technician from Pasadena. His name was Carl Reyes, a mid-aged man with steady hands and a skeptical mind. He'd done electrical diagnostics for studios and hospitals. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he believed. He came on a weekday afternoon when most guests were out. Angela refused to accompany him upstairs, so a junior concierge handed over the keycard and left. The suite was immaculate, fresh orchids on the table, sunlight laying gold stripes across the carpet. The air, however, carried that same peculiar sweetness. Carl noticed it immediately. "Someone overdid the perfume," he muttered, setting down his toolkit near the desk. He began with the basics, tested voltage, checked outlets, replaced a bulb. All steady. Then he turned off every light and plugged a portable frequency meter into the main socket. The display flickered with normal readings until a soft hum rippled through the vent, a low resonance around 430 hertz, hovering, steady. Carl frowned. It wasn't typical airflow. He crouched near the vent, listening. The tone wavered for a moment, dipping slightly, almost forming a shape, not random noise, but the suggestion of a note. He noted it down without comment. He worked his way toward the bathroom, equipment bag over his shoulder. The moment he stepped across the threshold, the temperature shifted sudden, not a draft, but a drop like walking from sunlight into shade. The tiles were cool, but the air felt heavier. He held his breath and watched the steam from his exhale curl upward as though something unseen were moving through it. The tub gleamed bone-white porcelain, polished to a mirror finish. He leaned closer, checking the faucet joints for leaks. Nothing. Yet a single drop of water clung to the spout, trembling as if pushed by a pulse of air, then fell soundlessly into the drain. Carl's pen slipped from his hand and clattered against the marble. The sound echoed too long for the size of the room. When he stepped out into the corridor 15 minutes later, his report was brief: no electrical faults detected. Possible vibration resonance in vent system causing auditory phenomena. But his face was pale, and he kept glancing back at the door as he left. That evening, the manager, a measured man named Leonard Briggs, called a meeting in a small office behind reception. The participants, himself, 2 housekeeping supervisors, and the night security lead. On the table lay a small speaker, Angela's recording. Leonard pressed play. The hum filled the room again, soft, ghost-like. Beneath it, after 10 seconds, came the 2 descending notes, faint but deliberate. The melody seemed to breathe into the silence. No one spoke. Finally, Leonard said, "We don't discuss this with guests." Understood. Heads nodded. The recording was locked away in his drawer, labeled Suite 434, February log. But secrets like that never stay contained. A week later, one of the security guards mentioned it to a friend who worked in media. The friend laughed, told the story on a podcast about Hollywood mysteries. Within days, the hotel switchboard received calls not from reporters, but from fans. People wanted to book the Whitney room. Some wanted to film TikToks there. Others claimed they could channel her. The staff were told to deny such requests, but every few nights, someone would still ask with a grin, "Is this the one?" Michael Dunn, the guest who had first reported the strange water sounds, returned to Los Angeles 2 months later. Out of habit or curiosity, he checked the Hilton website. Room 434 wasn't listed anymore. It had been quietly reclassified under a different number. But when he called, the booking agent hesitated and said softly, "Sir, that room isn't available. It's under refurbishment." Still, he couldn't let it go. He came to the lobby one evening and ordered a drink at the bar. From his seat, He could see the hallway leading toward the elevators, the one that curved right to the 4th floor. He didn't plan to go up, not really, but something in him wanted to see the door again. Around 10, he rose, pretending to take a call, and slipped into the elevator. The doors opened to the quiet corridor, plush and dimly lit. A cleaner's cart stood near the wall, unattended. The scent of jasmine hung faintly in the air, unmistakable. He walked slowly past the room numbers 428, 430, 432, then stopped. The plaque where 434 should have been was gone. In its place, fresh paint, smooth and beige, as if nothing had ever existed there. Yet the carpet still bore a faint indentation where luggage wheels had once worn a path. Michael stood for a long time, listening. The hotel seemed asleep. Then came a sound faint, from behind that seamless wall. A single note, low and aching, like someone humming through water. He turned and left without running, but fast enough that his breath caught in his throat before he reached the elevator. Back downstairs, the bar had grown louder, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, the ordinary music of the living. But behind the marble, above the chandeliers, on that quiet 4th floor, something remained, an echo that refused to fade. The kind that doesn't shout or startle, but waits. And for those who have ever stood in that hallway when the night deepens and the air smells faintly of jasmine, they say if you listen closely, you can hear her again. Just a breath, just a note, a reminder that not every song ends when the music stops. Months later, the Beverly Hilton glimmered as if nothing had ever been wrong. The Grammy parties returned, the chandeliers blazed, and the same crimson carpet stretched through the lobby where photographers once crouched, waiting for that perfect frame. But for those who worked there long enough, something had changed. They spoke of it carefully, with that mix of curiosity and reverence reserved for things you shouldn't name aloud. Room 434 was gone. Officially, it had never existed. Renovation documents listed maintenance restructuring. The suite merged with a storage closet. The numbering sequence adjusted. But the wall they built there never seemed to blend with the rest. Guests walking past sometimes paused, staring at it as if expecting a door. It wasn't a door anymore, not visibly. Just a panel of newer paint, slightly lighter than the corridor around it. By that autumn, most of the staff had stopped talking about it. Except one, a part-time journalist named Riley Mendez, who freelanced for a small entertainment blog. She'd heard rumors through a friend in hotel management. A sealed room, unexplained recordings, an urban legend orbiting Whitney Houston's death. She'd grown up listening to I Will Always Love You, and something in her needed to know if it was all just gossip or if grief could, in some impossible way, stain a place permanently. Riley booked a standard room for 2 nights and arrived with a small camera, a notebook, and the kind of curiosity that edges too close to obsession. Her first evening passed uneventfully. Glossy guests, the smell of perfume and champagne rising from the bar, the hum of expensive lives moving without hurry. Yet, when she rode the elevator at midnight, the quiet swallowed her completely. The 4th floor was colder, the air heavier. She followed the corridor, her shoes barely whispering on the carpet. Then she saw it, the patched wall between 432 and 436, perfectly smooth but wrong. The symmetry of the hallway had been broken. A faint seam ran along the baseboard, as though the wall had been added in haste. She stopped and listened. First, only silence. Then, something subtle, not sound exactly, but a vibration, low and steady, like music leaking from another world. She knelt, pressing her palm to the plaster. The hum deepened. One note, pure and long, fading just before it became a melody. She stood there for what felt like minutes. A soft draft passed down the corridor, carrying with it that scent, jasmine, powdery, unmistakable. The same perfume Whitney had been known to wear. Riley's chest tightened. The smell wasn't coming from behind the wall. It surrounded her, gentle but firm, as if someone had just walked past her shoulder. Back in her room, she couldn't sleep. She played back her recording device, the one she'd left running in her pocket. The audio was faint, static-filled, but beneath the elevator chime and the shuffle of her steps, there it was again, a woman's hum. Delicate, mournful, suspended. The same 3 notes over and over, almost pleading. The next morning, Riley went downstairs to find someone who might remember. The concierge, an older woman named Darlene, looked up from her desk, and when Riley asked softly, "What was in room 434?" her eyes darted to the manager's office before she answered. "I don't know what they told you," Darlene said, voice low. "But they didn't close that room because of rumors. They closed it because things wouldn't stay in place. The sheets, the mirrors, the scent, they said she was restless." She paused, lowering her voice further. "And one night after we sealed it, the alarm went off on its own. Not the smoke detectors, the water sensors. The ones near the tub." Riley stared. "But there is no tub anymore." "That's the thing," Darlene whispered. "The sensors still think there is." That evening, Riley returned to the 4th floor. She stood before the wall again, the camera running this time. The hallway was empty. Her own reflection shimmered in the brass trim of a nearby sconce. "Whitney," she whispered, "I don't want to disturb you. I want to understand." The light above her flickered once. Then again. The air turned heavier, and the faint hum returned, almost melodic, growing clearer. It was no longer random vibration. It was a voice. She held her breath. The sound came not from the wall, but from the vent above it, the soft, trembling rise of a woman singing the vowel pure, nearly human. Riley's eyes watered. She couldn't move. Her camera trembled in her hand, the frame shaking. The voice built for a few seconds, then faded into silence, leaving behind only the hum of distant plumbing. She ran. 2 days later, she submitted her notes and audio to her editor, but the story was never published. The magazine declined, citing sensitivity to the family. Riley posted the recording online anonymously. It circulated briefly before being taken down, though those who heard it claimed the same thing. At the 2:43 mark, beneath the hum, a faint whisper can be heard. A woman's voice, calm, sad, saying, "Let me finish." The Beverly Hilton still thrives. The rich still toast beneath its chandeliers. And somewhere behind a wall that doesn't belong, in a sealed suite without a number, a song continues incomplete, unfinished, but alive. The jasmine still drifts when the hallway empties. The lights still pulse when the night deepens. And if you pass by that stretch of corridor, alone after midnight, you might feel it, the weight of a final note hanging in the air, waiting for applause that never comes. Not a haunting born of terror, but of memory. A soul caught in its last performance, refusing, even now, to leave the stage. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.